We ready to go? All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. Those of you who are watching online, thanks for joining us. Before we introduce our speaker, Gary Winkler, a couple things to let you know about. A couple Sundays ago, Steve and I went down to St. John's Lutheran in Jefferson City, and we taught Sunday school down there, and then it was pretty cool. After the service, they had a potluck lunch, and then they had a pie auction. Any of you ever been to a pie auction at a church? The ladies all made pies, and then everybody bid on the pies, and when they were done, they gave all the proceeds to Mac. So it was pretty cool. And somebody, I don't know who this lady is, but somebody paid $200 for a pie down there. But we appreciate it. Hopefully we can go back there another time. The folks were hungry for the word about creation, so that was awesome. Couple things to tell you about. Number one, Joel Brown actually went through this series at our meetings about 2 years ago. And as you know, we lost Joel to Creation Research Society. He is their director. He is their director down there now. And so he moved his family with his 8 kids, his wife and 8 kids. They all moved to Arizona. And I talked to him about coming back this fall and doing this series. What's good about this series is it's for general audiences. So it's not aimed at creation heads like us. It's aimed at the general public. But it's really a great presentation. You can see what he goes through. There's 5 parts to it. And what we'll be doing is 2 on Friday night and then 3 on Saturday morning and having a Q&A. We are still working on a venue for that, but we'll be doing that late September, early October, somewhere in there. The next thing to tell you about, and I'm going to be passing out cards for everybody. Steve, if you can advance the slide. Oh, which one? The silver one? Gary, I'll let you do it. Yeah, it has to. I think it has to go from Steve's. So please bear with us. We have technical difficulties here. Want to put up another slide, but I will talk about it here. Oh, there we go. We have collaborated with Brooks Bible College to do this symposium on June the 12th. It's a Friday. It'll be a daytime event. We're wanting to attract pastors in order to develop a relationship and to get opportunities to speak at their churches, but it's open to the general public. There's no charge for it. And the speakers are Keaton Halley from Creation Ministries International. His topics will be Darwin or Design, and then Monkey Morality, Can We Be Good Without God? Those are his 2 topics. And then Douglas Petrovich, who is an instructor at Brooks, but he lives in Houston, and he does his class via Zoom from Houston. You might recognize the name. He was in the movie Is Genesis History? He was also in the movie Patterns of Evidence, The Moses Controversy. He was in both of those movies. He has 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and he's a real guru on archaeology. His presentations will be Mosaic Authorship of the Pentateuch and Evidence for Joseph in Egypt. So those aren't creation Keaton will be doing the creation part, but we're calling the conference Defending Genesis. So there is no charge for it, and I'll pass information out to everybody. But if you'd like to attend, you need to register because we need to know how many people will be coming. And you can register. If you go to our website, in order to register, we're going to kick you over to Brooks's website. So either one of them works. But we're looking forward to that. It should be a really good event, a very, very educational. Doug Petrovich in those movies really gets down with the archaeology. He really understands things that are for me, difficult.
Where is it located?
Brooks Bible College is in South County, not too far from South County Shopping Center. The address will be on the website. Okay. At Brooks. Yeah, at Brooks. Just real quick, Scott, you got anything to say on the zoo tour or the homeschool convention?
So just real quick here. So our zoo tour is coming up. Our zoo tour is coming up at the end of April. And we opened up signups and we are 3/4 of the way full. I think Monday is almost all the way booked already. So so that's going fast as it always does. And and then we're also going to be there at the homeschool conference in March, later on in this month. And just more or less being able, I'm going to be speaking on how to teach creation and the importance of teaching creation in your homeschool. So we're going to be talking about that and then encouraging the homeschool parents as well, and then handing out things for the zoo and just letting them know that we're an unavailable resource to be able to do that. So because we teach at homeschool co-ops and youth groups and churches and stuff like this. So that's always a good thing to be able to do. That's a good presence for us. Okay. It's actually at St. Charles Convention Center.
Right. And Thursday night is a free night. Friday and Saturday you have to pay. So if you want to visit it and just kind of nose around, Thursday night's the night to do it.
Pretty big deal.
There's a lot of booths. So that's all I really had to let you know about. It's pretty exciting, this symposium here, and having Joel come up in the fall, and we want to make good use of these guys. Keaton also, besides speaking at the symposium, Keaton is going to be our speaker for our June meeting, but we're moving the meeting from Monday to Thursday in order to be able to have him. So that's all I got to say on that. Tonight's presentation will be made by Gary Winkler. Gary is a recently retired engineer, right? And Gary serves our board of directors as a secretary, and he does a great job with that. Tonight's presentation, the story of creation. There are many people groups around the world with oral or written versions of where we in the world and universe came from. Let's take a journey around the world and across the ages, exploring those various stories and myths, and see what insights we can glean from the collection. Please welcome Gary Winkler.
All right, thank you. And thank you for coming out on this beautiful evening or joining us online. And so, like Marv was saying in the introduction, the Bible gives the most detailed.
You talking to the microphone when you're facing.
Thank you. The Bible gives the most detailed and most accurate story about the creation. But there's lots of stories around the world, and we'll be taking a look at what some of them say. So we're going to start out in Nineveh. The prophet Jonah lived in the 8th and 9th century BC, and the archaeologists archaeologists denied that Nineveh was even had even existed. But then around in the 1840s, they started digging and uncovered walls. And this story is played out over and over the years that people, archaeologists and others, deny that some of the events in the Bible had happened, but then they uncover the evidence, and it's happened many times. So here's another section of the walls, and then this was actually a shrine to the prophet Jonah, or his burial site, they say. And the Muslims converted it to a mosque, and then it got buried over the centuries. They uncovered it, and then the Islamic State decided to blow up everything they could. The Muslims actually greatly respect Jonah and all the prophets and Jesus, but they deny that Jesus is God. So Nineveh was located on the Tigris River. Modern day Mosul is just across the river from it, that you've probably heard about in the news during conflicts there. Ashurbanipal was a king that at this time, so here's some reliefs on the wall that they found from his day, and he's mentioned in the Bible as Osnapper. Ashurbanipal was actually a man of great learning and culture. He was also incredibly cruel, even by Assyrian standards. But he built a great library, and they've uncovered some little bits of it, including several creation accounts. Now, skeptics say that the Bible was drawing from these ancient Babylonian creation accounts, but better scholarship points to the Bible actually drawing from older sources that these are also drawing from. So Ashurbanipal talked about how he enjoyed reading some of these Sumerian tablets, including stones that were inscribed before the Great Flood. There's something called a Sumerian king list that they found pieces of all over Iraq and surrounding areas. And there's something called the Dynastic Chronicle that's a parallel document to the Sumerian king list that was found in Nineveh. So the king list starts out with what's been called the antediluvian section, meaning before the flood. And it starts out with the kingship descending from heaven. And then it lists 8 people, kings that reign for seemingly impossible lengths of years. And then the flood swept over. Now, skeptics have scoffed at this and dismissed it as just fantasy. But some scholars recognize that all these huge numbers, they're divisible by 60 and divisible by 60 squared, 3,600, except the last two have increments of 600 after it. Well, the Sumerians used base 60 instead of base 10 like we do. Now, that may seem kind of strange, but we use that all the time. We use it for time. There's 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute. And we use it everywhere. The globe is divided into 360, 60 times 6 degrees longitude, and 3 times 60, 180 degrees latitude. And both of those systems are traced back to the ancient Sumerians. So it all makes sense that they were using these systems. And so creation.com has an article going into the details, but they're making the case that these are the 8 people listed in generations between Adam and Noah. Now, whether it's those 8 or if it's some other 8 kings that have diverged, either way, I think they're on the right track. It all seems to fit. So we're going to move to Papua New Guinea. Tom Hoey was a missionary. He and a couple other missionaries traveled to one of the last tribes of headhunters and decided to be missionaries to them. And they found out that they had their own creation story. So there was a man that heard a palm tree crying. He decided to make his own companion, carved a tree into the shape of a woman, then breathed the breath of life. And then there was a great flood. Now, obviously, there's a whole lot of differences between this and the Genesis account. But you see some of the same elements shining through here. And the missionaries noted that they quickly accepted the gospel and credited the fact that they recognized some of that creation account, some of that basis. And then the leading headhunter became the leading leader of the church there. Here's some of the tribesmen in their traditional garb and a British man in his traditional garb. And that's the first graduating high school class. So we're going to move to North America now. There's a book called The Sun Came Down. And the subtitle is The History of the World, as my Blackfeet elders told it. And the author said, his name's Percy Bullchild, 67, a Blackfeet Indian from Browning, Montana. With what little education I have, I'm going to try to write the version of our own true ways in our history and in our legends. Now, skeptics often say when they recognize that Indian tribes, their stories match up with what the Bible says, they'll say, well, they're just repeating what the white man told them to say. Percy said most written history of us Indians has been written by non-Indians. Most of these are so false and smearing that it gets me very mad. But this is our history and our legends of our beginnings, the very beginning of all life. So does this sound like a guy that's just going to be a mouthpiece for some recent European immigrants? He said, he starts with there being a lone spirit. He has been alive from ever and will continue to live forever. Now, this sounds a little biblical, doesn't it? Said from the mud, Creator Son molded a form in his own shape, his own image. The mud figure came to life as Creator Son blew into his nostrils. Now, so you see the Creator creating him in his image and giving him the breath of life. So if you just cross out the word son, that's almost straight out of Genesis. Now, this tradition was handed down over thousands of years. So if one link in that chain changed God being light to God being the sun, then you have that story. It goes on that the mud man, the Creator wanted to help him overcome his loneliness. And so he put him into a deep sleep. And kneeling down, he took out his lowest, smallest left rib. So that's a little more detailed than what we're told in the Bible. And he made an image after the mud man and after himself. And looks like she'll be the mother of all living. And one day she was looking for food, and a snake man told her a half-truth, caused her to betray her husband. The Creator found out, but he forgave. But he notes that there is a penalty for sins. We'll move down to California. The Jolan Indians, the federal government applied the name Salinan to them. So at the creation of the world, the Creator decided to make human beings. The Creator here is a bald eagle, apparently. He took clay and modeled a man, and then decided that it's not good for him to be alone. He needs a mate. So he made a woman from a feather. And while the man was still asleep, and then the bald eagle awoke the man by flapping his wings over him. So obviously there's a lot of differences, but you see an awful lot of the same elements from the Genesis account. Moving over to Arizona, the Pima tribe says, in the beginning, there's nothing. There's a Creator, Juwertamakai, the doctor of the earth, and he floated, hovered, if you will, above the darkness. And he created the mountains and all the plants. But before he did that, he made water and then the sun. And you see a character, Nui, that's not Noah. That's apparently, it's an evil buzzard that seems to be a Satan sort of character. After the sun, he made the moon and the stars. And then it goes into a song about the creation. You see, come and see it and make it useful, which sounds a bit like the Dominion mandate. And he made two little dolls, a man and a woman. And the first parents were perfect. There's no sickness, no death. But then the world got populated and said they killed and started eating each other. The Creator didn't like it, and so he decided to let the sky fall on them. Now, again, there's lots of little differences in the details, but an awful lot of the same themes here. Moving to the Pacific Northwest, the Kinaw tribe talks about in the beginning, there was no rain. Moisture was coming up from the ground. And then eventually that stopped, and apparently rain came after that. The Choctaw tribe in Mississippi and thereabouts, they're big. They were big mound builders. They worshipped Abba, the good spirit who created the first men out of yellow clay. They decided to reach the sky, build a mound up to heaven. The Abba destroyed the mound, and then they spoke different languages. The people started to fight, and then they scattered around the world. So this talk started out as we're going to show the Wallam Olam film, and I kind of went off on another track. But the Wallam Olam is an account from the Lenape Indians. And this man, Constantine Rafinesque, he was born around Constantinople, moved to Pennsylvania in the early 1800s. He was a brilliant man. He was a botanist, named a lot of new plants that he found, and also knew a dozen languages and studied the Indians when he arrived here, wrote a book, The American Nations. And in it, he recorded, included a creation account from the Lenape Indians. So the story as he told it was an old Lenape Indian. There was a smallpox outbreak. A Dr. Ward was treating him and others. It may be that they were fearing that they were going to be wiped out. The Indian couldn't pay for his treatment. He gave their history, which was recorded on these tree barks. And the doctor eventually gave it to Constantine Rafinesque, who would better know what to do with it since he studied it. And the doctor didn't really know that much about the Indians. And so Rafinesque copied everything down on paper, but then he lost the originals. Well, that struck a lot of people as suspicious. It did me at first. But of course, I could picture myself losing the originals. But so here's a curious story. Rafinesque was staying with John Audubon, who you may know from the Audubon Society, a great naturalist. And one day, some bats flew in the window while at night, and Rafinesque got all excited because he thought it was a new species. So he took Audubon's prized violin and started trying to smash the bat. Unfortunately, he missed the bat and just destroyed the violin. Well, Audubon got a little mad, but he decided to get even. And he told them about a whole bunch of species that he had discovered. One of them's the lion-tailed jumping mouse. Well, Rafinesque got excited, published all these new species, and then found out he had a joke played on him. And Rafinesque took that hurt his reputation. Well, Rafinesque had a few other incidents where he seemed maybe kind of naive, and he did a lot of great work. He did some sloppy work too. So anyway, a lot of people dinged Rafinesque, and more recently, someone did a study and declared the whole thing a hoax. But we'll take a little deeper look. Daniel Brinton was a Civil War surgeon and very well studied on various Indian tribes. He wrote a big book, and he included the Wallam Olam after studying and deciding, yeah, it was valid. And E.G. Squire was an archaeologist who did the same thing. He was a little suspicious, but he decided it was accurate. Maybe more convincing Jasper Donkerts was a couple of Dutchmen came in the 1600s and talked to an old Indian back then, asked him where his people came from. Well, he went all the way back to the beginning. Said there was just water, and then the earth, a tortoise rose out of the water. You know, I kind of have developed a theory. It's not researched, but I'm wondering if when they talk about tortoises coming out of the water and so forth, tortoises show up quite a bit. Well, in the sketches, I'm wondering if they just showed the mound and somebody along the way said, hey, that looks like a tortoise. And it caught on. Anyway, that's just a thought. It goes on and says a tree grew, and then from that, a man grew, and then a woman grew from the roots. So obviously, big differences here, but you see some of the same elements. And so the point is, the story from the 1600s matched the story independently transferred to Rafinesque in the 1800s. Has all the same elements, so that seems convincing. So the story, there's a creation of the world, there's a watery chaos, then land separates, there's a supreme creator, there's a evil enters the world, there's a serpent involved in that, there's a flood, and then there's a migration after a divine judgment. So you see a lot of those same elements, even though lots of the details are different. By the way, there's hundreds of flood accounts in all the Indian tribes. So the Wallam Olam also includes their history. There were many people already inhabiting the Americas, but this group came over in 900 AD and wound up encountering some friendly, some foes. And in fact, their biggest battle was across the river here in Cahokia. And then they eventually made their way to the East Coast in the 1400s. So not that long before some famous explorers started coming over. We'll move down to South America, the Inca. They're famous from the 1500s, 1600s, but they're descended from peoples long before. And they recognized Viracocha as the creator of all things. And commoners are not allowed to speak his name. He rose during a time of darkness to bring forth light, made the sun, moon, and stars. He made mankind by breathing into stones. There's a flood account. Said there was a race of giants. And interestingly, they talk about a man dressed in a white robe, carrying a staff and book in his hands, that left and walked across the Pacific and disguised himself as a beggar, teaching people and working miracles. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but it's interesting. And Viracocha promised to return in times of trouble. The Popol Vuh, moving into Central America, the Quiche Maya are an ancient people, and they start out in the beginning, there's only sky and water, and the world was in darkness. And there was a serpent. They talk about the heart of heaven, and appeared as three kinds of hurricane, that's the Spanish spelling, or lightning. And that sounds a bit like the Trinity, perhaps. They fashioned a man out of clay. They made a great flood. The resin fell like rain. It's an interesting detail. Most of the people were killed. And there was a separation where people had to go in different directions around the world and spoke different languages now. Moving north a little, the Toltecs. Fernando Ixtal was descended from Ixtal the first and second, who were kings of Texcoco. And the second was there when Cortez landed. And he actually allied himself with Cortez against Montezuma. But Fernando was tasked with taking all the ancient writings and translating them into Spanish. And he said from them that the global flood came 1716 years after the creation of the world. That's within maybe a century of what the Bible says. Men multiplied, built a very high tower. Now the Toltecs knew all about tower building. Their ancestors arrived 520 years after the flood, which is about 1800 BC. And Chihuahuatl is considered the mother of all humans, and she's always paired with a serpent. She's the mother of twins that are seen fighting here, and is considered to have fallen from her first state of happiness and innocence. So again, a lot of different details, but a lot of the same themes from the Bible. We'll move over to Southeast Asia, the Miao-Tso people, or Miao. Now, you know, in America, we don't necessarily keep our traditions very faithfully, most of us, but they do. Every wedding and funeral, they repeat their whole history so they don't forget it. It starts with God creating the heavens and the earth. And he created a man from the dirt. And from the man, he created a woman. Interestingly, Adam seems to be the first scientist doing some calculations. And, you know, like all the great scientists that founded the branches of science, they were honoring God by doing their science. The patriarchs, so the first man's name translates as dirt. And we see Seta, which sounds like Seth. And a few generations, it skips some from what the Bible has. But then you find Noah, his wife Gabolawen, who's not named in the Bible. Their sons Lohan, Loshen, Japhu, which sound kind of familiar. And the world had turned wicked, and God decided he had to destroy that world and begin again. So it poured for 40 days in sheets and torrents, and then 55 days of mist and drizzle, which is a detail that's not in the Bible. He had built a boat, a huge boat. The animals went on it, male and female. And after the flood, Noah sent out a dove. And then afterward, he sacrificed cattle. And then everybody descended from them, were speaking the same words and language. They decided to build a high tower. And God decided to change their language and accents. And then they split up and went around the globe. They say they are descended from Japhu and his son Gomer. Japheth has a son Gomer. And then several generations, and then there's a family with 11 kids. 5 of them joined the Miao people, and 6 of them joined with the Chinese people. So moving north to China, we see the Temple of Heaven here. This was built in the 1400s. Here's from ground level. You see these marble platforms. Every year they would sacrifice a bull. And it was to Zhandi. And they say Zhandi, which was the supreme emperor of heaven. And they recognized him as the creator of heaven and earth. The ancient pronunciation was Zhandai, and that sounds a bit like El Shaddai. So it was built in the 1400s, but it was actually moved there from Mount Tai, a few hundred miles south. And border sacrifices were held there from 2205 BC to 1400 AD, 3,600 years, according to their records. Wikipedia says 600 million years ago, Mount Tai sunk into below the ocean. Alternately, maybe the ocean came up over the mountain. So the Emperor Wang Di built an altar to Shandi per their document here. His successor was Emperor Shun in 2200s BC. And only worthy emperors who doubled as the high priest were allowed to carry out the sacrifices. Zhandi was spirit, and statues to him were forbidden. Wang Di, some say, was Noah's successor. There's quite a few people that have studied it that have said Noah went over to China. Of course, he lived 350 years after the flood. So some of the recitations during the border sacrifice, when Zhandi, the Lord, had so decreed, he called into existence heaven, earth, and man. Of old, in the beginning, there was a great chaos without form and dark. The 5 elements, which many say are planets, had not begun to revolve. It wasn't until, for many centuries, we had only found the 5 planets. The outer ones were found later. They had not begun to revolve, nor the sun or moon to shine. You, O spiritual sovereign, first divided the grosser parts from the purer. You made heaven, you made earth, you made man. All things with their reproducing power got their being. So I'm going to play a little clip. We'll see if
Why does all
this
this
works.
matter today? Because it reminds us that God is not a Western God. He is not the God of white people or Europeans. He is the Lord of history. Today, Christianity in China is exploding. It is estimated that there are over 100 million Christians, more than the members of the Communist Party. The government tries to stop them, burns crosses, arrests pastors. But do you know what many of these new believers say? They say, we are not becoming Western. We are coming home.
So this is part of a larger video that might like to get into in the future. The Chinese apparently recorded celestial events that correspond to the birth of Christ and the death and resurrection. And so it's some pretty interesting things. And there's some other peoples in Egypt and Greece that recorded some of those events that they saw things in the sky that relate to it. So we've gone kind of around the world and just looked at a few of the peoples. We could probably almost cover the map from all these other creation accounts. And, you know, over and over what we see, the pattern is that the stories have, they match a little, some match a lot, but you see these common themes showing up that are recorded in the Bible. So I went to see what AI says about why creation myths have so many common elements. And they say, well, people have psychological needs to understand these questions and to explain the unknown. I changed the word from myths to stories and got pretty much the same answer. And what they're saying is, you know, everybody just coincidentally, or because we all have the same needs, we come up with the same stories independently. Well, I would propose a more likely scenario is they're all rooted in a reality, and some remembered better and recorded better, and some just have a fainter memory. So actually, secularists have come up with their own creation myth. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then a magic point appeared that created all the matter and energy of the universe. It's called the singularity. And then it exploded. Now, this process violates our best laws of science, but then people appeared. Now, I'm skipping some steps here. It took billions of years, but, you know, the steps all along the way, it's just one long string of miracles in the evolution story. But they don't have a miracle maker. And so I would suggest that this creation myth is the least logical of all the ones that we've looked at. So again, we've gone around the world, and we're seeing that pattern. And scientists should be recognizing patterns like that. The Bible tells us that he created from one man every nation of mankind and appointed the times and places for each group of people, and says that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. You know, he's given us the creation and made it so obvious that there's a creator that there is no excuse, certainly not for the nonsense of that secular creation myth. And the Bible says in Romans 10, if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Now, he's set the bar awfully low for us. You know, he's the one that did the work. He was nailed to the cross for our sins and then raised from the dead. All we have to do is put our faith in him. Just believe what he told us, what he did. There's 500 eyewitnesses. It's all written down for us. But even other peoples before having the Bible, they have enough to go on. So, you know, anybody out there watching, anybody that hasn't taken these steps, don't put it off. We run out of tomorrows eventually. So that's tonight's talk, and I thank you for your time and attention.
Really interesting. Wow. Gary is answering questions. I'll pass these out because I forgot to do it at the beginning. So.
Yes, Denny.
Nineveh, how much was it buried? Because you show big walls and buildings and everything. Was that much, all that buried?
That's my belief. I don't know if there were some ruins poking out or not, but people had kind of forgotten about it. Now, there were reports of Nineveh back, I want to say Marco Polo's day, you know, over the centuries, but then, yeah, it disappeared, at least to the extent that they didn't recognize it as Nineveh.
One thing, when Gary, because Gary was trying to run through a lot of it, it was amazing how many things lined up with the biblical account. When we were kids, we all played the game telephone, right? And the first person would say something, and by the time you got to the other end of the line, all kinds of things had changed. If you look at this historically, it was a big game of telephone for a lot of these tribes, because in the beginning they had no written language. They were passing it down verbally. But on the Miazzo that he brought up, Gary did a presentation, years ago, that he took from a book called After the Flood by Bill Cooper. And that book is actually available free online. I think it's ldolphin.com. But the Miazzo tribe, Gary talked about Jafu and his son Gomer, or Gomen, but it was Gomer. It also included, there was a Mise, which would be Mizraim. There was a Kusa, which would be Cush. So there were others in there that were part of that genealogy, and they had them in the right place. Right, Gary?
Right. And just a few were missing, but yeah, Lama, I think, was Lamech.
Yeah. There was one Lusu that could have been Methuselah, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
They might have been out of order. But at any rate, it's real interesting. Gary, thanks for doing all the research on this. That took a lot of research to put all that together. Any other questions for Gary?
Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, Mark, you know, with your whole thing on the telephone is that you said you're right, that when you get to the end, you can't recognize the beginning of the story. There are so many pieces of this that you do recognize that you're just like, this is a really good game of telephone, and that's what I thought. You know what I think? Is that they held on to so much, but I think that all speaks to their appreciation of their history.
Right.
So many of them wanted to know, where did we come from? And to have people remember.
Right. And that going back to when Gary did the presentation on the Miazzo, it interested me so much. I dug into it. That was years ago. they recited at weddings and funerals. They would recite their genealogy. So 2 people getting married, the guy, they'd say so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, and they'd go back to Nua and then back to the, whatever the word for dirt is, right? And so they did that at weddings and funerals. If somebody died, they would recite his whole genealogy going back to the beginning. Really interesting stuff.
So their weddings and funerals take a while now.
Now, is that down to Southeast Asia? Is that-
Yes, so it's in China, but it overlaps into some of the other
Malaysia?
countries, I think Thailand and Vietnam a bit.
Did you study American tribes in their stories in the American tribes? I know you told a couple of them.
Right, so yeah, I looked at those. It's just the tip of the iceberg that I've looked at. I think, yeah,
Been a lifetime on that.
yeah.
There was a recent study by somebody, and I thought it was with Creation Ministries, but where they looked at the North American tribes. Something about they all had.
Yes, Nathaniel Jeanson has done a lot of work recently on that.
Yeah, he's got some videos. If you go to YouTube and put in his name, his last
Yeah.
name is Jeanson, or is it SEN? Might be SEN. O-N. Oh, you would know.
The book's called They Had Names. It's about the history of the American Indians, even down into parts of South America. And he ties it in, obviously, with the biblical timeline, or believed to be the timeline. One of the interesting things that comes out of this, all this work that he did on it, is that the archaeologists and anthropologists don't dismiss any stories that the Indians have, any of their origin stories, just like, it's done with, the biblical story also. And so there's an upfront bias against believing any of it, which is why you don't generally hear that much about it. But it's a fairly in-depth book. They had names.
Is that named by who?
Nathaniel Jeanson.
The Jeanson. Yes.
Any other questions for Gary?
I get one little interesting question about the long poem on the slide. You had his name, and after that, his name, there was a dash with the word schmaltz, which is a Yiddish word meaning fat. It refers to like schmaltzy movies, like, what can you say about that? That's about speaking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I had seen something about that. It every once in a while it shows up with that
Really?
hyphenated name, but a lot of times it doesn't. So I'm not sure.
How do you spell that, Jansen?
Because it's like an inside joke, somebody.
It's Jeanson.
It's scary.
Yeah, very often when they're talking about Indian spiritual beliefs, they talk about the Great Spirit.
Mhm.
That, I just wondered where that particular term came from. Is that kind of a way of Hollywood, entering into kind of cloud the situation, or is that name actually used in Indian writing? The Great Spirit.
I think it's from some tribes using it. Yeah.
My brother's out in Wyoming, so I'll have to ask him to maybe investigate some of these stories with Cheyenne and the Sioux out there in that area where he's at, and see if maybe I can share that with you sometime, and I'll get that information for me now. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah. One of the questions. One important thing on your handout here is that there's no division.
Right.
Now, these are going to be sent out to the church, did you say?
Well, I've tentatively put together a marketing plan. But we're going to talk to the board about it and just see how we want to spend the money. But yes, our goal is this. Brooks has a rather extensive mailing list of pastors. We have a mailing list of pastors, but it's a couple of years old, and you know how pastors come and go. And so we may use that and just send it to pastors. But with their mailing list, they have email addresses for everybody, which we have email addresses for a lot of them. But bottom line is that we can send them a postcard. First of all, Brooks has got an expository preaching conference starting tomorrow, and they'll have 50 to 70 local pastors there, and they're going to pass these out. Okay. Then, because we have these mailing lists, we can mail a postcard, follow up with an email, follow up with another email. So our goal really, we're trying to expand the circle. Okay. We want a lot of pastors and a lot of homeschool groups and a lot of Christian schools to know more about us so that we can get in front of them and teach. So, yeah, we've got money budgeted to promote this. If anybody would like a couple more of these, if you've got a friend or if you know a homeschool moderator, or grab some. But we probably be 3 weeks or so before we would mail anything out. But the mailings will go to pastors, but we'll have it on our website. We will email our entire email list, which we have over 1,000 names. I don't know how many of them open their email, but we've got over 1,000 people. A lot of them aren't local though. Walt was on our email list, but he lived in Kentucky. He moved back. So we'll see. We're going to do the best we can with it, and we will be able to promote our group. That's the whole idea of doing this. We'll be able to promote our group, meet the pastors who are present, and talk to them about, hey, let us come to your church. Let us do Sunday school with you. Or if you've got a Christian school, let us come in. Let us do a creation day. So that's what we're working on.
So the zoo tour people will be familiar with it as well.
The what?
Zoo tour people.
The zoo tour people will get one, yes. The people who come to the zoo tour in the parents' packets still have this.
Can you explain the zoo tour again?
Sure. Scott, you want to explain it? Scott's our chairman. We've been doing this since the fall of 2012. And we call it Homeschool Day at the Zoo, but you'd be welcome to come. You don't have to be a kid or even dress like a kid. No, you don't have to.
You can't.
You can if you want.
Perfectly fine. Yeah, but what we do is that we have and like you said, we've been doing this since 2012. So what we do is we have 7 different speakers, and they speak on the seven different animals at the zoo. So in the past, we've done stuff where Marv will talk about the giraffe, Paul will talk about the eagles and things like this. But basically, what we're doing is we're teaching on specifically really kind of like design features of an animal, and to be able to say, instead of walking past and going, oh wow, look at the cool giraffe, and then walking on 10 seconds, 15 seconds later, it's just like, well, let me tell you about this. And so we go through and we do about a 10-minute talk. Some of us do longer. Some of us. Marv would say. Anyway, but yeah, so some of us do longer, but basically it ends up being about a 10-minute talk. But we'll talk about the different animals and give a biblical background on the animal. and be able to kind of match it up with creation, be able to say what makes sense. Marv does a great job of that with the giraffe when he sits there and says, hey, if it's got this long neck and everything, if it's got a small heart, it's going to live. No, it's not going to live. It needs to have a big heart. Okay, what about this and what about this? And all these different features it has to have. It's a system. It's a working system. If it doesn't have big lungs, it's not going to live. So all of a sudden, it's just like, it's not going to live. It has to have all these pieces. Now, does that sound like something that would happen all randomly at once? Or does that sound like something that was designed? And so that's what we do. And we try to kind of point to that.
And when you're going to be doing it?
April 27th and 28th. It's the Monday and Tuesday. It's the last Monday and Tuesday in April.
We also, we do it twice a year, so we'll do it in the last Monday and Tuesday in September as well.
Yeah.
And each person that comes will get a booklet
Mhm.
that has the 7 animals we're teaching on. It'll have fun facts about each animal. It'll have some images there about certain features. It'll have fill in the blanks. And some of the families, they fill it out right away. And some of them wait till they get home to see how much the kids remember, but we give the parents an answer sheet. Yeah. So, but we'll do about 500 people in the spring and 500 people in the fall. And when Scott first came up with this idea, we decided to do it. And he sent an email out at 11 o'clock one night to the West County Christian Home Educators.
Yeah.
And at 1 o'clock in the morning, how many signups did you have?
I don't know. We had probably like 10 or 12 people already signed up by 1 o'clock in the morning. You know?
He emailed me the next day and said, okay, I think we're on this.
Yeah.
And
then we did. And we had it as where it was going to be like, okay, we're going to end up having, 25 people in a group and we can maybe do, 400 people. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, we've got way more than 400 people signed up, and how would we do this? So ended up expanding it up to being about 550 people that we did. And I had a wait list, and Marv in a stroke of genius said, you know what? We're going to redo this and do this in the spring as well. And just tell all your wait people, come in the spring. And so we've just been doing it ever since that way.
And we had to expand it from 1 day to 2 days in the spring and 2 days in the fall.
Yeah.
We got wonderful guys like Paul here that he says, well, Paul's going to retire now. It won't make any difference. But Paul would say, okay, give me the date so I can get my vacation date.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
yeah.
But we've had a great group of volunteers that have always been there. God's always provided for that, and there's some great anecdotes from, not anecdotes. I mean, there are accounts of things that had happened. I mean, there was a time when we didn't have a speaker we had it all set up for 2 days to do their talks. And one of our guys could only make it the first day, and he was doing the elephants. And I was just like, I don't have anybody to do the elephants the next day. And we went through the whole tour, and it was just like, well, what are we going to do the next day? I go, I don't know. I've called everybody that I know. And we get to the end of Wednesday, and this one family comes by, and the husband says, this is really exciting. They're really interesting. I'm really, if there's any way I could help you guys, let me know.
We got a job for you.
And I said, what are you doing tomorrow? He goes, tomorrow? And I go, yeah, tomorrow. And he goes, nothing. He like worked for himself. He says, I'm not doing anything. I go, could you talk on the elephants? And he's just like, I guess so. And I go, trust me. I says, I had somebody go through and videotape all of us already. So I'll have the video for the guy who did the elephants. I'm going to send you that video clip, and you can just learn it right from there. And here's the handout for it. And I said, and you've just been through the tour, so you know exactly what goes on. So he came back the next day, and he started doing tours with us as well. So it was just amazing to see God provide for us when we done. So it's been an awesome thing.
And before we call on you, Beverly, there are things everybody will tell you.
Oh.
When you study these animals, you just have to stop and give glory to God. And it was funny, the one year, we have 3 different tours that we do. So there's 21 different animals. There's actually a 4th one. It's in the River's Edge area, and it's kind of tight going through, and they've asked us to not do that one, but Scott's going to see if we can reinstate it. But there was a tour where we had the big cats, and I think we had the
chimpanzees, we had the sea lions, right? All these cool animals.
And we had, the way we had to do this, the people on the tour have to make a big circle, because they go from animal 1 to animal 2 to 3, and then they go to 7. So if you start at 7, so we had to have a circle. And one of the animals at the time, he's in the children's zoo now, but was the North American river otter. And we had all these, these really cool animals. I told Scott, I said, you know what,
I'll try to find something interesting.
I'll try and find something interesting about the river otter. I started studying that thing, and I took my glasses off. Lord, I'm so sorry that I thought that this was just some kind of a
Rat.
Yeah, I mean, they have in 1 square inch. I have no idea who counts this or how they figured this out, but a river otter in 1 square inch has 400,000 hairs, and God's Scotch guarded is here, so it's water repellent. So, like when you get a river otter up like near Canada, his primary food source is fish. And he's down in the depths of the water, and his whiskers act like a motion detector. So he can sense a fish swimming by. There's all kinds of other things. But the main thing is, God's Scotch guarded his fur.
I want that fish anymore.
Yeah. So God's Scotch guarded his fur. So when he's in freezing cold water up in up in Canada or northern US, he can dive, he can stay underwater for 8 minutes at a time. But he can dive, and that freezing, icy cold water never gets through to his skin to make him cold, because he's got thick fur and it's water repellent. And you study this stuff and go,
It sounds interesting.
yeah, I can see how that could have evolved.
Yeah. No,
Nah,
they're amazing. They're amazing animals and everything. And so one other thing though is that Marv in his humor, Marv had a flashback to Sesame Street when he started doing it. Okay? And so he had these 4 different things and everything, and one was like a motion detector, and that's like the whiskers of the otter. Right? So then he had also a nose plug and ear plugs, which is something that the otter actually has kind of built in, goggles and stuff like this. But he had these 4 different things, and he holds them up and he says, now, he says, one of these things is not like the otter.
No.
That was good. That was good, but it was fun.
anyway, you're more than welcome
Absolutely.
to come. You can sign up online. You don't have to be a kid. We call it homeschool day because that's mainly what we get.
But we got some Christian homeschool. We have some Christian schools that have come in the past, and in fact, we've got one coming this year as well. So yeah,
Well, our
so
church is starting in Christian school in September.
Oh, cool.
So
Come, get the information, grab some books. That'd be awesome. We'd love that. I told Beverly I'd get her first.
But I think you already answered the question, because I asked if there were more than just 7 animals that you do.
Right.
You do change.
Yeah, we do 3 different and possibly 4 different tours. And we do the same tour. We'll do a tour in the fall. We'll do it again in the spring. And then the next fall, we do a new tour. So fall and spring are the same one because we have so many people on the wait list. So we do fall and spring, and then we do a new tour.
oh yeah, absolutely. And the same thing is it's been that way. We have 500 to 600 people sign up to come every session. So yeah, so over 1,000 people.
I was just wondering, can the whole crowd hear your presentation very well?
You know, just real quick, we had some growing pains. When we first started, Scott contacted the zoo, told them we were coming and what we were going to be doing, and we were doing it in one day. We had groups of like 35 and 40 people, and we were having to talk loud and project, and so they went to Scott and said, "Okay, we need to talk." So there was a little bit of conflict in the beginning, but I have to tell you, after the
God's been
first
good.
maybe 3 years, the zoo has been wonderful to us.
Yeah.
Scott calls them, says, "We're coming. Here's the animals we're doing." And they will, like they may ask him to come down. Like I did the penguins one year, and Scott went down and talked to Hannah. I think she got married. I don't remember her last name now. But she said, "Look, when your guy does the penguins, we want him to stand here. And we want the people here." And they did that for several of the animals. And at one point, they had some construction going on at the zoo. And I think it was between the birds where Paul
Yep.
was.
Yep.
And I forget what the next animal was. But they actually put a sign up. We didn't even ask them to, because they had construction. They put the sign up, "Mac Tour with an arrow." So the zoo they have been absolutely wonderful.
They've been very, very
So, and that's one of the reasons we went to 2 days, so we could cut the group sizes down.
Yeah.
And in answer to your question, yeah,
Everybody can hear us. Everybody can hear us now.
They're-
Yeah, no, they're good.
I had a lady, I was doing the giraffe, and I sent the group to the next animal, and my next group hadn't come yet. And this lady came up to me, and she gave me this.
Not with
look
the
like
two.
I just killed a baby. And she took a picture of my name tag. And I said, "Ma'am, the zoo knows that we're here. And we're just doing our group." She goes, "What? If my son was here to hear what you just said, I would be furious." And I really, everything that was in me wanted to say, "Well, it looks to me like you're furious anyway." But I didn't. And that woman went down to the zoo office and said, "There's a man up there. He was talking about Jesus." And the lady said, "Yes, that's a group. They're here every year. And we know they're here." And the gay black gal apparently just kind of put her tail between her legs as much. So the zoo tells us that we teach our own group. If someone asks us, "Who are you guys?" the only thing we can do, we wear shirts that say Missouri Association for Creation. We can say, "This is who we are. We have a website." And the reason for that, back in the 70s, the Hare Krishnas invaded the zoo. They invaded the zoo and irritated everybody, so they had to put a rule in. And so, and we honor that rule. And yes, there are people when we're teaching that stop and listen. And we've had people say, "Hey, who are you guys?" And we say, "Like this." And, you know, some of them stay in contact with us, and it's
Some of them are people that are positive. We get a lot of positive feedback from people as well, right? You know,
Right.
as they're there, and they're just like, "Wow, that was really cool." You had a pastor. He was contacting them and going around to different churches, and he contacted this one pastor, and the pastor goes, "Are you the guys in the red shirts down at the zoo?" And Mark goes, "Yeah, that's us." And he's just like, "That's awesome." You know, so they're really excited about it. So it's been pretty good.
We get there and actually, I'm a substitute now. We have a lot of guys that want to teach, and I have plenty of opportunities to like presentations and things.
It's about 9:30 to about noon is the first tour, and then we go from 1 until about 3:30 is the second tour. So it's a long, it's like a 2 hours of actual talking and walking and everything like this and what we got. Anyway, it's very good. Thank you guys very much for the questions. Very good.
Any other questions for Gary?
Oh,
Oh, no.
that's right, Gary.
Gary, what is your Indian name?
I don't know. That was it.
You did Cahokia. I mean, that might be
Yeah.
an area which everybody should take advantage of, or some kind of, this over Collinsville area, kind of presentation they have. There at the museum, you know, right across from the mountain. Yeah, the museum there.
It's very interesting. So let's thank Gary one more time. And Gary, would you like to pray us out?
Lord, thank you for bringing us all here tonight to learn more about all the people that you've created. You made us all one blood. We are all descended from one man and one woman created in the image of God. And please help us. Please help everybody to always understand that. Watch over everyone on their way home, and most of all, thank you for sending your son Jesus to die for us. Amen.
So folks, we got books and things for sale over there, a couple of free items, and if you need more of these, they'll be over on the counter over there. Thanks, everybody, for coming.